Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today's episode is more on the personal side. We're talking about emotional and relational success, but also, of course, how that bridges the gap and will help you grow your business, get unstuck from where you are in business. And we have an amazing guest to help you do that. His name is Owen Marcus. Owen, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandon.
So this is a topic that we like to touch on the show. I like to say that we're building the whole entrepreneur, right? The business is awesome. If we only have guest experts who are in business, I don't think we're going to get that far. We also have to cross that bridge and talk about the personal side of business because we're all human beings. So tell me, you have the 3 tools we were never given for emotional and relational success. What are we really talking about today?
We weren't, particularly as men, but I think it's true in this culture for women, that we weren't told how much stress takes us out of success. And even when we become successful, we're often not really able to fully enjoy it or appreciate it because of the stress we have. And that stress starts to be cumulative and starts taking out our relationships and even our success. So through years of science and research, and then many years and decades, actually, in my case, of working with people, we've been able to unpack, how do we take the physiology of stress, not only just understand it, but develop some skills that we should have had when we were kids, but didn't have, to take that stress and turn it into ways to connect to ourselves, but particularly connect to others and downregulate the stress response so we can upregulate the connection response.
That's interesting. So I'm curious, why is that just a United States culture kind of thing? When you say it's a cultural issue, what does that look like?
It's probably Western culture, and the more primitive cultures or cultures that are more communal, it's a lot less. But in this culture, over the years, for a lot of different reasons, we've put ourselves in these boxes that we don't realize because we've been in them for generations. But particularly, I work with a lot of men, and we don't realize how confined we are around, maybe we're starting to realize around our emotions, but our stress. And so as men, we are really oriented towards performance, which is fine, but the physiology of stress sets us up. When we're stressed out, we just don't perform that well. But we don't know how to, quote, relax, because everyone tells us to relax, but no one tells us how to do that. And so what I found is understanding a little of the model, which is very simple, and then developing some skills, which is skills to slow down your physiology. We start to relax. And as we start to relax, other people start to feel safer because they pick up our cues, nonverbal cues. They start to relax, and we get a positive cycle. We start to connect, and our creativity goes up, our cooperation, our collaboration, all of that increases as our stress goes down, be it a personal relationship or a business relationship. And I've been in my own businesses for 50 years. I know how critical that is. Not only does it get easier and more fun, but generally just more successful.
So I'm excited to dive in here and unpack this because, this is an epidemic. I think we're all operating with some just consistent base level of stress that if we just knew how to manage it, and I don't even know if manage is the right word, so please jump in and correct me. But if we knew how to manage it better,
that's a good point. Manage is not the right word, because that's part of the problem that we're given, is that we need to manage stress, and the implication is we need to control it. But that you might change the symptoms, but you're not dealing with the cause. Because here's the deal, and science has now proven this to be true, is that we have an experience, and we first experience it somatically through our body. Within a millisecond, we have an emotional experience, and then we have a cognitive experience. Now we think, and I use that word deliberately, that we think that that's the only experience, and that something else happens down here that we got to use our mind to control it. But the latest research shows that the nerves in our gut go 80% this way and 20% down. So really, it's our gut and our bodies that are telling our survival parts of our brain, which are the deeper, older parts, what's happening. So as long as we're under stress, we're in survival. And if we're in survival, our physiology is oriented towards that survival, towards threats. So even though we might not think it, we have oriented a lot of our resources to dealing with stress, which means we're not dealing with things like creativity, connection, rejuvenation, relaxation. And so over time, that just builds up. It builds up in terms of the accumulation of more stress, but it also builds up in terms of that becomes becomes the default behavior. And we're doing it even when we don't need to do it.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm gonna never say manage stress again. But we don't want to put band-aids on things. We want to find the root cause of whatever's going on. So where do we start with this? What are the three tools that we're talking about here?
So like I was sort of inferring, we're hardwired to for stress or survival, which, and you could say stress. So we got to understand that. And what we do with that is we start to learn how to downregulate, which is to relax. And really to relax is to slow down our physiology. And this is the critical part. And probably the easiest way, or the way that's talked about the most, is our breath, because we're breathing unconsciously. We all know that, because we wouldn't be alive if we had to think about it. But the beauty of the breath is that we can control our breath. And there's a lot of different breathing techniques that sort of work with this. So simply, if you're finding that you're under stress, just breathe slower and have your exhale be longer than your inhale. So they talk about box breathing, like 4 seconds in, 4 seconds held, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds, holding the release. So I would just make your exhale longer, because the physiology of that is, if you're exhaling longer than you're inhaling, you're telling your nervous system that to slow down, and it does. And then you're telling yourself you're safe. Because the other thing that happens is, if you're focused on your body, innately you're telling yourself you're safe, because the reciprocal of that is, when we're in a threat response, a stress response, we're oriented towards the outside. We're looking for threats. So if we can take some of that and orient towards our somatic experience, innately we're saying, oh, we must be safe. And then when we're safe, we have a lot more resources available.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have trouble with that too, because it's something we don't focus on, right? It's natural. It's human nature to just breathe as is. And then when you get in that cycle of stress, it sounds like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It keeps building on itself. So what are some ways that you teach people to immediately interrupt when you do notice? How do you even notice that you're in a stress response? Because I see a lot of people who just go about their days, and I think I said this even before, we're all operating with some level of stress. So how do you even interrupt what you think is quote unquote normal?
Well, that's a brilliant question. And that's like the question, because along with what I was saying, is we become less and less aware of our body. So we might be aware of it years later when, we have this problem or that problem, but we deal with it in the moment. So one of the most common things, we find our shoulders going up under stress. That's a common response. But anything that's getting tight is a sign that you're under stress, or that you're having all these random thoughts. We'll just assume that even when you're relaxed, you're probably under some stress, because we're so habituated to it in our culture. But when you're particularly under stress, it is harder to downregulate. So what I train people to do is catch it on the long tail, catch it when we're not in a critical situation. So you work with these skills when you can work with the skills. And that's the power of somatic meditation, yoga, and all these things have become popular. So you learn these skills when you're not under stress. And what happens is, when you're under stress, you go, oh, my shoulders are up. Oh, and I got a client that is very busy, owns a company, is all over the world dealing with this. And quickly he learned that as his shoulders get tight and he starts to sort of pseudo hyperventilate, he just practices the breathing I taught. And within a minute, he starts to relax. And now he's training the people that work for him to do it. So he produces these, huge shows. So like thousands of people at these shows. He's the guy in charge of this. So he's under a lot of stress, but he finds by using these simple techniques, he's performing better. Because he's performing better, the whole team performs better.
That's interesting. Yeah, I always look at things that we talk about on this show, like how can you bring it to your teams too? Because it's one thing for the leader, the business owner, to be in peak state, if you want to call it that, but we're not. I don't think we make a practice of bringing that down to the people that work with us too, and actually are building our company. So I love that you brought that up. So that's tool one, right? Is breath work. Where do we go from there? What's the second tool?
There's other tools we can use for what I call the somatic or body part. And then the next one is we're hardwired for connection too. So the
Mhm.
therapists talk about it as attachment theory. It's no longer a theory, but we as mammals, and particularly as humans, we need connection. So when we don't have connection, it is a bit of a threat response. So it can produce a stress response in ourselves and another person. And science has shown that we are hardwired to need it, but we're also hardwired to show our experience. So if we're relating and you pick up from my face, my voice, my body language that I'm stressed, you're going to interpret it unconsciously as if I'm a threat. And then you're going to manifest those unconscious behaviors and we get into this downward spiral. And so we go from, needing connection, even in a business situation, to disconnecting and sort of protecting ourselves, which doesn't foster connection. So understanding that we all as humans need that connection. And what happens is when we have that connection, we do what the scientists call co-regulate. Have you heard of that?
No, is that where you match somebody else's
Yeah,
level?
we unconsciously, exactly. We match that. So if you're a business leader and you go into the meeting jacked up in a stressful way, everyone in the meeting is going to pick it up. They're probably not going to tell you, but they might not even know. They're going to pick it up. But if you walk in, you might be, excited, but you're relaxed, you're open, you're connected to some way to your experience. You want to connect to them. Um, Entirely different experience. And this is what we've been training people for decades, and amazing results in some just simple skills. So that's like the second one. And maybe both of these are really predicated on creating a safe space, an emotionally safe space. And now that's gotten real popular in business. As a Harvard professor named Edmond, she has a book out on psychological safety. It's now seen as something that we need at work, and we do. And we got DEI, and my whole thing about DEI and all these programs is they're great. The but is you might have a program, but if you're the boss and you're stressed, they're not going to feel safe. But if you're relaxed and you create a relaxed space for them, which means it's okay for them to have some kind of feelings, screw up. We know what safe means. Um, Ultimately, your performance is going to be better and it's going to be a lot more fun.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I'm also curious you to go back a minute there. You said how you show up influences how other people show up. So what are some tools that people can take with them in going and meeting with their teams, with their employees, to make sure you're always showing up in the right way? Because I doubt any of us as leaders want to show up and put our people in a state of stress or make them feel like they're not safe. By nature, we don't want that, right? So what are some things we can do before that meeting? And then also, I guess the caveat to this question is also we're in a virtual world. Is this happening on Zoom too, or where do we go with this?
It happens virtually either way. We've had some amazing programs virtually, which surprised me. And I think we've all been on enough Zooms meetings where some guy or some woman showing up and she's stressed or he's stressed, and we pick it up. So it happens virtually too. So what I work with my leaders on is, as I was saying earlier, to learn these skills just in general, or just take 30 seconds before you go into a meeting and connect with yourself. Relax, take a few deep breaths, move, down regulate. Go in there as relaxed as you can. And with the intent, not only to, go through your agenda, which is important, but also to connect and realize that maybe you don't get everything on your agenda done. But if you leave that meeting where people feel more connected, in the long run, that's going to really pay off. And with that, track people and how they're doing. So slow down, read people's nonverbals, get them to engage, maybe call on the shy person that doesn't usually speak and say, hey, Joe, I haven't heard from you. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this. So encourage engagement. And maybe the key or the secret to this is the more aware or connected you are of your own experience, the more it's going to be natural, easy for you to connect to others. And the more, as I said earlier, that you're connected to your own experience, the safer you're probably going to be for others.
Yeah, it's so important to be focused on that. Is there any sort of a physical cue or verbal feedback you should be looking for from other people to know that, you could think you're one way, but you may be portraying that you are in a highly stressed state. So how do you know that other people are receiving what you think they are?
Another good question. You can look at body language, and we all sort of know that. I mean, are they doing what you're doing, literally leaning in, or they're like this, or they're looking at their phones, or if they engaged or are they not? That's the first thing. And then you can get subtle about reading their facial language, or what's these little muscles of expression doing in their face, their voice tone. Are they engaging? Are they asking questions? Are they being vulnerable? Or are they just sort of reciting the party line? Are they telling you what they think you want to hear? Are they in some way challenging you? Maybe not in a direct way, but hey, Brandon, well, did you think about this? Are they taking emotional or whatever kinds of risks? If they're taking risks, it's a safe place.
I love it. Yeah, and it's so important. I would imagine this would have a direct impact on the performance of the business, the bottom line. I mean, I don't want that to be the focus, but it obviously is a happy side effect, right? So, tell me, with some of the people you've worked with and trained, what is the effect on the overall performance of the team, the business, the profits, all those things?
It's interesting. These are successful people. I generally work with men, so they're successful men, and it's like one day they sort of wake up to this and they go, it's not like my business is unsuccessful, but now I see another whole arena that I can make it more successful. But often at that point, they're actually more focused on just enjoying it more. And then they start implementing some of these skills first for themselves. And some of these business people send their employees to us, or they start teaching some of their employees some of these things, or changing their meetings around and seeing it works. And what happens is at the end of the day, they realize they're getting more done, but they're going home a lot less stressed. Number one. And two, they're going home with more pleasure, because not only are they making money, but they're actually connecting with people and they're changing their lives. I had one guy that ran a very successful company. Well, he was hired a few years ago and he brought me in, and it was a challenging position, and he turned it around. And one of his goals was to empower his team. And he knew that he needed to learn some skills on how to do that. And we taught him that. And now he's running another business. But in the course of a few years, he turned around this whole division. And it was really by how he was showing up. And he's making a difference, not only in that division, but because of how he did that, he made a difference in the whole company.
Yeah, super cool. It's so powerful and it's so subconscious, which is why I love that we're having the conversation, because hopefully it makes people think, how am I showing up? What am I portraying to other people? How am I building relationships with them or not? So, and this is a really cool conversation. Where can the listeners go and learn more about you and everything we're talking about here today?
Yeah. My company site is meld.community. It's MELD.community. And you can find me there and our programs. And then I have my own sort of coaching site, but you'll find me through there. And it's mainly for men, but we do some programs for women, or co-ed programs. And and we just dive into taking the science of, the physiology of emotions and stress, and distilling it down to some simple skills that we all can use and start to succeed with.
I love it. This is so fantastic. Oh, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brandon.
For those of you watching, listening, wherever you are, all the links are down below in the show notes. So go check those out. And also subscribe. We'd love to have you back. We love that you're joining us for this episode. If it's your first or your 275th, I don't even know what number episode we're on right now. We love having you here. So welcome in, welcome back, and we'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch.